The signal appeared on Dr. Kim's monitor at 3:17 a.m. At first, he thought it was a glitch, a repeating pattern too perfect to be natural. He rubbed his tired eyes and reached for his coffee. But the pattern remained. Within minutes, similar reports flooded in from listening stations across the globe. Dr. Kim called his superior, Director Bay, who arrived at the observatory within the hour. They watched together as the signals grew stronger, more complex, and undeniably artificial. "We need to inform the Secretary General," Director Bay said quietly. Within days, the world's most powerful radio telescopes all focused on the same distant point beyond Mars. The signals contained mathematical sequences, then simple images, and finally a message. Prepare for arrival. World leaders gathered in an emergency summit. Behind closed doors, they fought, argued, and eventually agreed on a unified response. The public was told only that anomalous signals had been detected and were being studied. In an underground facility beneath the Korean peninsula, General G reviewed classified files on Project Nemesis, a joint international defense initiative born from decades of quiet preparation for this exact scenario. The project had been dismissed as paranoid by many, but now seemed prophetic. "How soon can the Prometheus be ready?" he asked the chief scientist. 6 months at minimum," Dr. Park replied. "The signals suggest we have 4, at most," the general answered grimly. Teams worked around the clock. Military forces worldwide began subtle repositioning. Civilian satellites were repurposed for deep space observation. The strange signals continued, growing stronger each day. 87 days after the first signal, observatory technician Yoon was the first to spot them. Massive objects decelerating as they entered the solar system. By the following morning, they were visible from Earth's most powerful telescopes. 7 enormous ships, each larger than Earth's largest city, arranged in a perfect formation. They moved with impossible precision, ignoring the laws of physics, as understood by human science. Dr. Kim addressed the UN General Assembly, his voice steady despite his fear. "The objects are artificial vessels demonstrating technology far beyond our own. Their purpose remains unknown, but their trajectory will bring them to Earth orbit in approximately 9 days. Panic spread despite government efforts to maintain calm. Religious fervor swept across continents. Markets collapsed. In some regions, riots broke out. President Park addressed her nation. "We face an uncertain future, but we face it together. All of humanity stands as one in this moment." Behind her confident words, emergency protocols activated. Key personnel were moved to hardened facilities. The Prometheus project accelerated to desperate speed. On the 9th day, the alien fleet entered Earth orbit with perfect synchronization. Screens worldwide suddenly displayed the same image, a humanoid figure with grayish skin and eyes too large, and dark for its face. "People of Earth," the figure spoke in flawless global languages simultaneously. "You have been incorporated into the galactic hegemony. Your planet holds resources valuable to our expansion. Your compliance will determine whether this transition occurs peacefully." The creature introduced itself as High Commander Lore of the hegemony. It detailed Earth's options: immediate surrender and resource extraction rights, or correction. World leaders requested time for consultation. The aliens granted 48 hours. In the hidden underwater facility, Dr. Park worked frantically to complete the Prometheus systems. "We're at 91% operational capacity," she reported to Admiral Lee. "We need more time." "Time is the one thing we don't have," the Admiral replied. The world's combined Security Council met in a bunker beneath the Swiss mountains. After 16 hours of debate, they reached a decision. President Park, chosen as humanity's representative, transmitted the response. "The nations of Earth accept the generous terms of the galactic hegemony. We request protocols for peaceful integration." High Commander Lore seemed pleased. "Wise decision. Preparation vessels will land in your major population centers tomorrow. Resistance is unnecessary and would be futile." As the transmission ended, President Park nodded once to General G, who immediately contacted the underwater facility. Authorization code Nemesis, he said. Begin final preparations. That night, while the world prepared for alien landings, the ocean floor opened in the mid-Pacific. Teams of engineers made final adjustments to Earth's secret weapon, the TSV, Prometheus, humanity's first and only supercarrier, equipped with technology reverse-engineered from decades of studying crashed alien craft that governments had kept hidden from the public. Admiral Lee addressed his crew. Tomorrow they believe they're accepting our surrender. They have no idea what's waiting for them. As dawn broke, hegemony shuttles descended toward Earth's major cities, unaware that humanity's greatest technological achievement was preparing to fight back. 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, Chief Engineer Sung moved through the tight corridors of the TSV Prometheus with practiced ease. The ship hummed with power as final systems came online. For 15 years, the world's brightest minds had worked in secret to build humanity's ultimate defense. Now they would see if it was enough. Shield systems at 98% capacity, reported Lieutenant Choi, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. Quantum drive stable. Sung nodded and made his way to the engine room. The heart of the Prometheus was unlike anything humans had publicly acknowledged possessing, a contained quantum field that bent conventional physics. The technology had been developed using fragments of information pieced together from recovered alien craft, secretly stored in facilities around the world for decades. The carrier itself was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, and equipped with weapon systems that would have seemed like science fiction to the public just months earlier. Its hull was composed of metamaterials that could absorb or reflect energy as needed, making it virtually invisible to conventional detection systems. Admiral Lee studied the tactical display in the command center as reports of hegemony landing, craft touching down in Tokyo, New York, Moscow, and 30 other major cities streamed in. Each alien vessel disgorged troops and equipment, establishing control centers with methodical precision. They believe they've won without firing a shot, muttered Commander Han, Lee's executive officer. That's our only advantage, Lee replied. Complacency. Deeper in the carrier, Officer Jin supervised the loading of quantum torpedoes, weapons designed to create localized disruptions in space-time. Each could disable or destroy even the largest hegemony vessels, at least in theory. No one had ever actually fired one in combat. All armament secured and ready, Jin reported through the comm system. Though I'd feel better if we'd had time for more than simulations. The ship carried a crew of 500, the best soldiers, pilots, engineers, and scientists from nations around the world. Many had trained together for years without knowing the true purpose of their exercises. Only in the last months had they been told the full truth about the Prometheus and its mission. In the medical bay, Dr. Ryu prepared her team for casualties. We don't know what their weapons can do to human physiology, she warned her staff. Be ready for anything. Meanwhile, on the surface, hegemony representatives met with government officials. Their message was consistent worldwide. Earth was now a protectorate of the galactic hegemony. Resources would be extracted, some humans would be relocated, compliance would be rewarded, resistance would be met with immediate elimination of population. Centers. President Park appeared on global broadcasts, urging calm and cooperation. Her words were carefully chosen, reassuring on the surface, but containing coded phrases that alerted military units worldwide to prepare for coordinated action. Back on the Prometheus, Admiral Lee gathered the senior officers in the briefing room. The hegemony believes humanity has surrendered without a fight, he said, his voice steady. They see us as primitive, barely worth noticing except for our planet's resources. Our surveillance indicates they've deployed minimal military assets, focusing instead on establishing administrative control. He activated a holographic display showing the positions of hegemony vessels in orbit. Their command ship coordinates all operations, he continued, pointing to the largest alien vessel. Our first strike will target their communications array. If we can isolate the landing parties from their fleet, we can engage them separately. Commander Han studied the tactical display. They've positioned defense satellites around their main vessels. Getting close won't be easy. That's where our stealth systems come in, Lee replied. If Dr. Park's team is correct, Our quantum field should mask our approach completely. In the engineering section, Dr. Park ran final diagnostics on the stealth systems. Years of theoretical work were about to be tested in the harshest possible conditions. If she was wrong, the Prometheus would be detected and destroyed before it could even reach the surface. All systems nominal, one of her technicians reported. Quantum field is stable and self-sustaining. Throughout the carrier, crew members made final preparations. Some recorded messages for families they might never see again. Others checked and rechecked their equipment. A few prayed. In the pilot bay, Captain Yoon reviewed the launch sequence. The Prometheus would rise through a series of underwater channels before breaking the surface. Timing would be critical. They needed to coordinate with ground forces worldwide to maximize confusion among the hegemony troops. Admiral Lee's voice came through the ship-wide communication system. All personnel, to battle stations. Launch sequence initiating in 30 minutes. As hegemony officials continued their smooth takeover of Earth's major governments, completely unaware of what lurked beneath the Pacific waves, humanity prepared to reveal that its apparent surrender had been its greatest deception. The Prometheus hummed with power as its crew took their positions. Earth's secret weapon was about to surface. The ocean erupted in a massive fountain as the TSV Prometheus broke the surface. Water cascaded off its massive hull, reflecting the morning sunlight in dazzling patterns. For a moment, the ship hovered, just above the waves, its quantum drives emitting a soft blue glow before it began to rise toward the sky. On the bridge, Captain Yoon gripped the controls tightly. Despite years of simulation training, nothing could fully prepare him for piloting humanity's first supercarrier into battle. The massive ship responded to his commands with surprising grace, accelerating upward through the atmosphere. Stealth. Systems fully operational, Lieutenant Choi reported from her station. Hegemony sensors show no indication they've detected us. Admiral Lee stood at the tactical display, watching as the carrier climbed higher. Maintain current trajectory. All weapon systems on standby until my command. The Prometheus reached the upper atmosphere in minutes, far faster than should have been possible for a vessel of its size. Its revolutionary propulsion system allowed it to move with the agility of a craft a fraction of its size, defying conventional physics. We have visual on the Hegemony command vessel, announced Officer Min from the sensor station. On the main view screen, the alien flagship came into view, a massive structure of gleaming metal that dwarfed all surrounding vessels. Weapons Officer Kang, prepare quantum torpedoes, ordered Admiral Lee. Target their communications array. Kang's fingers moved across his console with practiced precision. Torpedoes locked on target, Admiral. Below on Earth's surface, the coordinated distraction began. Military forces worldwide launched conventional attacks against hegemony landing sites. None posed any real threat to the alien technology, but they didn't need to. They just needed to draw attention. On the Hegemony command ship, alarms began to sound as reports of ground attacks flooded in. The alien commander, unprepared for resistance after Earth's formal surrender, ordered defensive measures. All attention focused downward, exactly as planned. Ground forces engaged, reported Commander Han. Hegemony vessels are redirecting their sensor arrays toward the surface. Admiral Lee nodded. Now, Captain, take us in. The Prometheus surged forward, still completely invisible to hegemony detection systems. It closed the distance to the command vessel in seconds. Fire, ordered Lee. Weapons Officer Kang released the first quantum torpedo. The weapon streaked toward the hegemony ship, leaving a trail of distorted space in its wake. Upon impact, it didn't explode in the conventional sense. Instead, it created a localized disruption in the fabric of space-time itself. The alien ship's communications array simply ceased to exist, along with a significant portion of its upper section. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. "Direct hit!" exclaimed Kang. "Their shields failed completely." On the hegemony vessel, chaos erupted. Their sensors had detected nothing before the attack, and now their communications were severed from the rest of the fleet. Emergency systems activated, but confusion reigned as officers tried to identify an attacker they couldn't see. Second volley, target their propulsion systems. ordered Lee. 2 more quantum torpedoes launched from the Prometheus, striking the hegemony vessel's engines. The massive alien ship began to drift, powerless and partially destroyed. "We've crippled their flagship," reported Commander Han, unable to keep a note of triumph from his voice. But the element of surprise couldn't last forever. Other hegemony vessels, alerted by the attack on their command ship, began scanning space with more powerful sensors. "They're adjusting their detection systems," warned Lieutenant Choi. "Stealth field effectiveness dropping to 78%. "Time to move," said Admiral Lee. "Captain, take us toward the secondary targets." The Prometheus banked sharply, heading toward the cluster of smaller hegemony vessels. As it moved, it finally became visible to alien sensors. "We've been detected," announced Choi. "Multiple hegemony vessels locking weapons." Energy beams lanced through space toward the human vessel. Most dissipated harmlessly against the quantum shields, but the ship shuddered as one particularly powerful blast partially penetrated their defenses. "Shields holding at 83%, reported Engineer Sung from the engine room. "But they're learning our frequency." Captain Yoon executed a series of evasive maneuvers that should have been impossible for a ship of the Prometheus's size. The carrier rolled and spun, avoiding the majority of incoming fire while closing distance with the next target. Weapons Officer Kang fired conventional railguns, their hypervelocity projectiles tearing through the smaller hegemony vessels. The FAR quantum torpedoes were reserved for the largest threats. Their supply was limited. On Earth's surface, military forces noted the sudden disarray in hegemony communications. Ground troops pushed forward, reclaiming territory around landing zones as the aliens struggled to coordinate without their command ship. "Message from Earth Defense Command," announced Communications Officer Bay. "Ground forces reporting hegemony confusion worldwide. They're pressing the advantage." Admiral Lee allowed himself a small smile. "Send confirmation of successful first strike. Tell them we're just getting started." As the Prometheus continued its attack run, news spread throughout the ship, and soon throughout Earth, that for the first time the seemingly invincible galactic hegemony had been bloodied. Humanity had landed the first real blow in a war the aliens thought was already won. The Prometheus drifted in the shadow of Earth's moon, hidden from hegemony sensors as emergency repairs were completed. The Supercarrier had sustained damage during its escape from the battle, though nothing critical. Engineer Sung directed repair teams throughout the vessel, sealing hull breaches and restoring power to damaged systems. On the bridge, Admiral Lee studied tactical displays showing hegemony fleet movements. After their shocking defeat, the aliens had regrouped and were searching methodically for the vessel that had dared to attack them. "They're angry," observed Commander Han. "They thought this would be simple." "Pride comes before a fall," Lee replied. "But they still outnumber us significantly. We need to be smart about our next move." A sudden alert blared from Lieutenant Choi's station. "Proximity warning. Unknown vessel approaching." Captain Yoon immediately activated defensive systems. "How did they find us?" "It's not hegemony design," Choi reported, confusion in her voice. "Much smaller, and it's broadcasting a message." Communications Officer Bay adjusted her equipment. "It's in clear language, sir. They're requesting permission to dock." Admiral Lee frowned. "Put it through." A voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect Korean. "TSV Prometheus, this is Resistance Vessel Starbreaker. We mean no harm. We have information that will help your fight against the hegemony." The bridge crew exchanged glances of disbelief. "It could be a trap," warned Security Chief Moon. Admiral Lee considered for a moment. "Scan their vessel. Any weapons?" "Minimal defenses only," Choi confirmed after a moment. "Their ship is badly damaged. Life support systems barely functioning." "Allow them to dock in Bay 3, Lee decided. "Full security protocols." Security teams assembled in the docking bay as the small alien craft maneuvered inside. The vessel was unlike any hegemony design they'd seen. More organic in appearance, with flowing lines and a hull that seemed to shimmer with internal light. The airlock cycled, and 3 figures emerged. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. Tall and slender, with silvery skin that reflected light in unusual patterns. Their eyes were large and completely black. The lead figure raised empty hands in a universal gesture of peace. I am Rock of the Tarai people. We have traveled far to find you. Security Chief Moon kept his weapon trained on the visitors. How did you know where to look? We monitored the battle, Rock explained. Your quantum technology created ripples we could track. Few possess such capabilities, and none have successfully used them against the hegemony before. Admiral Lee arrived with Commander Han at his side. You said you have information for us. Rock nodded. My people were among the first conquered by the hegemony, centuries ago. We have fought them ever since, along with dozens of other subjugated species across the galaxy. We formed the Resistance. In the conference room, Rock displayed a holographic map showing hegemony territory spanning thousands of star systems. The alien pointed to small pockets of light scattered throughout. Resistance cells, Rock explained. Fighting, hiding, surviving where we can. But the hegemony has always been too powerful, too technologically advanced for any direct confrontation. Until now, added one of Rock's companions, a female named Tel. Your attack on their command vessel, it's spreading through hegemony communications like wildfire. You've done what no one has managed in generations. Communications Officer Bay studied the aliens carefully. Why should we trust you? Because we need each other, Rock said simply. Alone, your world will eventually fall. The hegemony never retreats. But together, with your quantum technology and our knowledge of hegemony, weaknesses. Tel activated another hologram showing hegemony ship schematics. Their vessels have a critical vulnerability in their power distribution systems. Your quantum weapons could exploit this with remarkable efficiency. Engineer Sung examined the technical data with growing excitement. This could double the effectiveness of our torpedoes. Admiral Lee remained cautious. This is valuable information if true, but allying with unknown species is a significant risk. The hegemony has called for reinforcements, Rock revealed. A fleet 3 times the size of what orbits your world. Now, they will arrive in 14 days. Without allies, Earth cannot stand against such force. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. There's more, Tel added softly. News of your resistance is spreading. Other worlds that have suffered under hegemony rule for generations are watching. If Earth succeeds in fighting back, it could trigger widespread rebellion. Admiral Lee exchanged glances with his officers. The stakes had just risen dramatically. Your ship? Lee asked finally. How many crew? We were 27, Rock answered. Now only 15 survive. We've been running for months since our last base was discovered. That night, as the alien visitors were given quarters aboard the Prometheus, Admiral Lee sent a secure transmission to Earth's Defense Council. The message was simple but would change the course of the conflict. We are not alone in this fight. Within days, resistance representatives from 3 other species had made contact. Engineers from both sides worked to integrate technologies. Tactical information flowed freely as trust grew. The Prometheus was no longer just humanity's last hope. It had become a symbol for oppressed species across the galaxy. As hegemony reinforcements approached, an unlikely alliance prepared to make it stand. The massive hegemony reinforcement fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near Jupiter, their ships forming a perfect battle formation. 3 times larger than the initial invasion force, they represented the full might of an empire that had conquered 1,000 worlds. At their center flew the dreadnought Absolute Rule, a vessel larger than Earth's largest city. On its command deck, Grand Admiral Zev surveyed tactical displays with cold confidence. Reports of Earth's resistance and the damage to the First Fleet had prompted the Hegemony High Command to send him personally to crush this unexpected defiance. Preliminary scans complete, his second-in-command reported. No sign of the human vessel that attacked our first wave. They're hiding, Zev replied. But it changes nothing. Proceed with the planned assault. The reinforcement fleet began its approach toward Earth, but as they passed Jupiter's orbit, sensors detected movement. From behind the gas giant's largest moons emerged a sight no hegemony commander had ever witnessed. a combined fleet of different species vessels, all flying in formation around the human supercarrier Prometheus. Inside the Prometheus, Admiral Lee stood calmly as the bridge crew monitored the approaching enemy. "All Allied vessels report ready," announced Communications Officer Bay. "Resistance ships have successfully integrated our quantum shield technology. In the 2 weeks since their first encounter with Rock and the Resistance fighters, engineers from both sides had worked tirelessly. The Resistance had provided crucial knowledge of hegemony weaknesses, while Earth had shared its quantum technology, a combination that had never before existed in the galaxy. The hegemony fleet has spotted us," reported Lieutenant Choi. "They're adjusting course to intercept." Admiral Lee nodded. "All vessels engage quantum shields." Throughout the Allied fleet, ships large and small activated the adapted shield technology. A rippling blue energy field enveloped each vessel as they formed up around the Prometheus. Ondi. The hegemony dreadnought. Grand Admiral Zev received the sensor reports with growing concern. "Impossible," he muttered as his officers reported the energy signatures. "Those are rebellion vessels with modified shielding." He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "How did the humans give primitive rebels technology we've never seen before?" The hegemony fleet opened fire first, massive energy weapons lancing across space toward the Allied vessels. But where such attacks had always devastated resistance ships before, now the quantum shields absorbed or deflected the majority of impacts. "Shields holding at 87%, reported Engineer Sung aboard the Prometheus. "The modifications to the resistance vessels are functioning within acceptable parameters." "All vessels, commence attack pattern Omega," ordered Admiral Lee. The Allied fleet split into 3 coordinated groups. The resistance ships, smaller and more maneuverable, targeted the hegemony's support vessels. Prometheus and Earth's conventional military ships focused on the larger battlecruisers. Each group applied the tactics developed through their shared knowledge, striking precisely at the power distribution vulnerabilities Rock had identified. Weapons Officer Kang launched a spread of quantum torpedoes, each programmed with the exact frequencies needed to penetrate hegemony defensive systems. The weapons struck with devastating effect, creating cascading failures throughout the targeted vessels. "Direct hits," Kang reported. "Enemy shields failing on multiple vessels." Across the battlefield, something unprecedented was happening. The hegemony fleet, used to easy victories and total dominance, was suffering substantial losses. On the dreadnought, Grand Admiral Zev watched in growing alarm as reports of destroyed vessels flooded in. More disturbing were the communications, from surviving ships describing weapons that bypassed their strongest defenses. "Pull back the forward battalions," he ordered. "Regroup around the dreadnought." But even as he gave the command, a more troubling development emerged. Several hegemony vessels had stopped responding to orders. Their captains, many from species conquered long ago and pressed into service, were witnessing something they had thought impossible: the hegemony being defeated. Seeds of rebellion, dormant for generations, began to sprout. 3 hegemony destroyers suddenly changed course, turning their weapons on their own fleet. Then 5 more. The command frequency erupted with accusations of treason and demands for loyalty. Aboard the Prometheus, Rock monitored these communications with growing excitement. "It's happening," he told Admiral Lee. "Just as we hoped. The hegemony has kept conquered species in line through fear and the belief they cannot be defeated. Now that belief is crumbling." The battle raged for hours. The Allied fleet took losses, but the hegemony forces suffered far worse. Grand Admiral Zev's carefully orchestrated formation collapsed into chaos as more vessels either defected or withdrew from the fight. Finally, the unthinkable happened. The Grand Admiral's own bridge. Officers, members of species subjugated centuries ago, turned against him. The dreadnought Absolute Rule broadcast an unprecedented message: surrender. Admiral Lee stood on the Prometheus bridge as representatives from Earth and the Resistance prepared to board the hegemony flagship to negotiate terms. What had begun as an invasion of Earth had transformed into the first step toward a new galactic order. "They never expected us to fight back," Commander Han observed. and they certainly never expected us to win.